name is Hannah Goeb, and I own and operate M&G Farms, which is a dairy and meat goat operation here in central Indiana. So we raise primarily boar goats, which are a meat breed, and alpines, which are a dairy breed for the show circuit. And we also do a little bit of production, primarily with our dairy goats. We handcraft and make soap, lotion, sugar scrubs, and things from the milk.
How did you get into farming?
So I got started in goats through the 4-H program. So my mom actually grew up on a farm, and they raised and showed pigs and a little bit of horses. So that's what they were really trying to push me towards, but I just wasn't interested in that. So they let me choose something that I was interested in, and I chose a goat. We didn't know anything about them, kind of started from scratch and learned as we go. So that's how I got started. Started with one goat, and soon we had 30, 40, and 50, so it grew very fast. Our goats are primarily on dry lots. We don't have a lot of access to pasture, so we're feeding them formulated grain, and we have come up with that, and we get that mixed for our dairy goats at a local feed supply store. Then our meat goats, get a pelleted feed, because that just seems to do better with meat goats, because that can give them more protein, which is what they need to produce that meat. And then we also utilize grass and alfalfa hay, so that's something we have to purchase from local farmers in our area, and that's their primary diet.
What about fencing and how you have the farm physically set up, if you could talk on that?
We have our barn, obviously, where we keep the majority of our milk goats because they're getting milked twice a day. So we need close access to them. So they stay in the barn. We also keep our does that are kidding inside the barn. We do all of our kidding inside, so we can be there and monitor what's going on, make sure that those kids get a good start to life. Everything else is outside. So our brood does that aren't kidding at the time, our junior does that are growing, and any bucks are going to be outside. And we keep them in different pens, primarily based on how we're feeding them. So our younger does are usually getting more grain because we want them to grow than our older does. So we split them up based on that, and then based up by breed. So our dairy goats are on one side of the farm, the boar goats are on the other, just so we can keep those separated for disease control purposes. Also, between every pen, we have 6 feet of space, and that also is for disease protection, where if one pen would get an outbreak of something, they wouldn't be in close contact with everything else, and it would go down the line. So a typical day would be getting up in the morning, feeding, checking water, milking. In the winter time, we don't do as much milking. We usually dry everybody off by the end of November, first part of December, and then we start back up in March. But if it's a time where we're milking, we obviously have to milk, and that usually takes about 5 minutes per doe. So just depending on how many does we have in milk at that time, that can add up, or it can be a small amount. We do use a milk machine. So once you milk the animals, you have to take the machine back in, clean it, because if you leave that milk in there, you can get bacteria and growth and things like that. So you don't want that. Then depending on if it's breeding season throughout the day, you would go out, check on animals that were maybe going to kid. So that can take up a little bit of time as well. Then do the same thing in the evening, go through feeding, watering, milking. Usually in the evening I go through and just kind of give everybody a once over, check for anybody that might be down and not getting up, any possible disease issues or illnesses that might be starting to come to the surface, so we can take care of that before it becomes a widespread problem. Yeah, so as far as deworming, we do fecal samples every 6 months with a vet. So we have a really good relationship with our vet, which is something that I encourage, especially if you're getting into any form of livestock. Make sure you find a good vet in your area, have them come out to your farm, and just kind of talk to them about some management practices. So our vet's been really great. We do our fecal samples every 6 months, and we only deworm if we need to, if she finds any eggs or parasites in those fecals, and that helps us prevent any parasite resistance or resistance to dewormers, so we don't have that problem in the future. I would say about 10 years ago, our primary source of marketing was our website. Now, especially in the last 5 years, I'd say social media is our #1 way to market our products. So having a Facebook page, a lot of times people, the first time they hear about a business, one of the first things they do is they get on Facebook and they search it, and they find that page. So that was something I would really encourage. Instagram's kind of starting to become pretty popular, like Facebook. So it's one that's kind of rising. We still have our farm website. Some people do go to that to purchase our products, but we really find that the most interaction we have with customers is through social media. With the meat goats especially, in central Indiana, it's kind of up and rising, but there's not a huge market for those products. But we do find with Hispanic cultures, Latino, those types of ethnicities and cultures, they want that goat meat, and it's around certain holiday seasons that they practice and celebrate. So we've kind of found different times of the year the prices will go up, and where we usually take ours is our local sale barn, and then they'll outsource it to whatever meat buyer wants that meat. So we have found that throughout the year, if you can find out those target times where the meat prices are up, you can get a much higher price than some of the other times of the year. Yeah, so it's definitely a full-time commitment, even if you have a full-time job. I mean, it's like having another full-time job almost, because before I go to work and when I get home, I spend the majority of my time checking on things at the farm. My family helps out a lot. My parents, we're on the same property right next door to each other, so they help me out a lot. If I can't be there because somebody's kidding and I'm at work, my mom works from home and she's able to deal with it. As far as management, like getting pens cleaned, cleaning water buckets weekly, things like that. I have a couple local FFA students that are coming for their supervised ag experience program. They're doing it in the goat industry. So they come out once a week and they work, they clean pens. They help me if I need to give shots or deworm. They clean water buckets. They know now to check the animals. If they see something weird, they'll let me know. This one looks kind of sick. You might want to check on it when you get home. So that's kind of how I've gotten things managed.
Yeah, that's good, because I know people really do struggle sometimes to find labor, to find good labor. So I guess, can you think of anything else that we have missed, or something that people should know about, either just in general or specific to your farm?
I would just say, if you're getting started, definitely research all of the types and all of the breeds, and really think about what you want. Like, for example, dairy goats. If you get dairy goats, you're committing to milking twice a day, every day, holidays, and if you go on vacation, you have to find somebody to milk, things like that. So it's a huge commitment. So you want to make sure that you're getting the breed and the type that's going to accomplish the goals that you want, but you also have to realize the time management that it's going to take, because every breed is a little bit different.